Okay, good morning everybody and a very warm welcome to the bluesource webinar, what's coming next in Symantec Enterprise Vault 11. So I will now just give you a quick high-level overview of what we're going to be talking about today. So obviously the subject matter is what's new in Enterprise Vault 11. I'll do some introductions to our esteemed colleagues and speakers that are with us today from bluesource and Symantec. We'll do a quick intro just to talk about what's happening in the archiving market and what's happening with EV just as a general kind of positioning, kind of sort of some statements, facts and figures. I'll also be looking quickly just at the evolving nature of archiving at the moment and also sort of how we see things panning out in the next couple of years. We then get into the kind of core of the content, which obviously is what's new in Enterprise Vault 11. We will have a demo. We'll also be talking about EV247, which is something unique to bluesource, which is essentially where we have combined our managed services with Enterprise Vault from Symantec and Microsoft Azure to sort of create a sort of all-encompassing sort of cloud archiving solution based on the full functionality of Enterprise Vault. So we'll tell you a little bit about that, and at the end we'll do a Q&A with our two key speakers. So very quickly, just by way of introduction, you don't need to know too much about me. I'm the marketing manager here at bluesource, and I just will be hosting everything today and giving you the quick intro. We are very lucky to have Steph Elvers here today from Symantec. She's an enterprise information intelligence consultant for Symantec. She's been there for going on 9 years, possibly a little bit more. She's actually been in the industry and has been, familiar with the Symantec, or when it wasn't even a Symantec product, Enterprise Vault in all its forms for a long time, longer than she'd admit to us probably. And currently she has specializations around Enterprise Vault, the data insight functionality now, which you start to hear a bit more about later on, and also e-discovery. We're also really lucky to have Mustafa Najjar with us today. He's the cloud solutions specialist for bluesource, so he will be talking a lot about what we do in terms of moving archives into the cloud, and that encompasses a wide range of options. His remit here is actually quite wide. Many of you will have probably spoken to him in the past. He's a real solutions and business problem solving kind of guy, so he's a great person to have on the call with us today as well. So I'll talk very quickly just about what we see at bluesource in terms of this sort of evolving archiving demand, what's driving things at the moment in the archiving space. And there's 4 real key things here. Obviously data growth we've just talked about, cost in general, compliance, and the impact of legislation, not so much legislation, sorry, but legal and e-discovery requirements in the business. So what we're seeing is, we're predicting 10 to 25% data growth year on year. I might have to update this slide now based on the last few times I've run that poll. So we're obviously seeing it's closer to 20 to 30% actual annual data growth rates. We're also finding that roughly IT budgets are not growing at the same rate, so obviously creates a kind of slight paradox there. More data, less money, and how do you actually deal with that challenge? Compliance is becoming a bigger and bigger issue nowadays for companies, so especially considering the impact of external legislation, especially with our core client base in the sort of regulated markets, finance, insurance, the legal sector, telecoms, public sector. There's lots of discrete challenges there that are all relevant when it comes to finding out how you can be compliant and retain compliance. But there's also internal governance, which comes into play here. And what we've also found is that for businesses that do have a set of compliance guidelines to follow, only 30% of them are actually have a kind of map or a strategy that maps their sort of internal information ownership and management policies onto those regulations. And what we're seeing is companies are having to start to take a more structured approach to addressing their compliance requirements and obligations. And just finally, very quickly, legal e-discovery, what with all the increase in legislation in Europe in general is starting to become more of an issue. The United States is very used to kind of e-discovery now as a component of pretty much all sort of archiving and information management solutions. And the bigger the company you are, the more of a role it comes to play, and the more likelihood you are to come into or to come face to face with kind of legal or legislation and e-discovery requirements. It's a growing area. It's something we won't go into too heavily today, as it impacts IT and other parts of the business in different ways. And we ran a poll sort of not so long ago, but of those companies that felt they needed e-discovery or had requirements to disclose information from time to time or regularly, 60% of them felt they had an inadequate response to that at the moment. So just to give you a quick overview of I suppose a snapshot now, and what we're seeing is the future really around it's really a family that we talk about in terms of Enterprise Vault, and it's not just archiving. I think there's a real growth towards seeing how owning a large volume of information, retaining a large volume of information, can be done in a way that's actually intelligent and can actually benefit the business beyond just being able to tick a box and say, yeah, we're compliant in certain areas, or we're able to demonstrate that we journal. There's a lot of information and value that's being locked up essentially in the archives now. Many companies have been archiving for 10 plus years, have retention policies that run for that period, or even beyond that. The Enterprise Vault family has really extended now to include data classification, which is to know even before an email hits the archive, roughly what the content and the using metadata, for example, how it can be classified, how it can be archived. It gives you an opportunity to know what to do with it in the future. Obviously, journaling, hand in hand now with e-discovery, the opportunity to search and disclose information in a very efficient manner using essentially the core Enterprise Vault and some of the other solutions that go with it. Data insight is something that Steph probably touch on a little bit more later on, but it really gives you the option, especially when you've got a sort of diverse data center environment. Where is data sitting, what kind of data have you got sitting in different places, how is it used, how often is it touched, what value does it actually have to the business, does it look like it's relevant still. Obviously, file and SharePoint archiving, that's been around for a while, but again, as people are looking to address these challenges of data growth, this is coming to play more as a way to actually deal with that issue. And something that we are finding again is also not a direct component of Enterprise Vault, but data protection, so your backup solutions. Archiving is a really fantastic way of decreasing the actual overall size of your backup. We've seen anything from sort of 40% space savings in terms of the amount of data that you might be backing up by having a archiving policy that maps onto what you need to do in terms of protecting your data. So that's pretty much everything from me. I hope that just gives you a little bit of an introduction in terms of the whole market in terms of Enterprise Vault and what's happening with that at the moment. I'm now going to hand over to Steph, who will talk about what's happening in Enterprise Vault and take us through the demo.
My name is Stephanie Elvers, as it kindly says on the slide. The accent you're hearing, just in case you're wondering, it is German, so you don't have to wander through the entire WebEx where she's from, and concentrate more on the important things, which is, of course, Enterprise Vault 11. So the first thing I would like to quickly discuss with you are the top 7 customer perspectives that we're seeing when we are discussing archiving in the market space today. It used to be that performance around your Exchange or other email solution within the organization was an issue that has changed now. It's really moved more towards a backup issue, which is the data growth that we discussed a little bit earlier. So you've got more data. However, due to changes in the technology around Exchange 2010, Exchange 2013, the performance is no longer a question. It's more, okay, now that we do have the data, what are we going to do with it? How are we protecting it? And how can we get around the risk and the cost that the additional storage requirement brings. Of course, Enterprise Vault being a solution here. Another thing that we're still seeing is PST file problems, so data that users don't want to delete, they don't want to give up, or perhaps they need to retain it for regulatory reasons. They're storing the data in PST files that are either stored on their own laptops or desktops, and often these aren't backed up, so you're potentially facing data loss issues. You got your laptop on a tube and someone nicks it, that kind of stuff. It always poses a lot of risk. And if you keep it on a network, then you still need to back it up, you still need to manage it, and the downside around that is that Microsoft doesn't support PST files on the network, so you got another whole lot of issues and potential problems around those. Finally, why do you archive? One of the reasons could be that you're looking at enhancing your e-discovery functionality. So you want to have all your free data conveniently located in a storage area or in the same sort of storage tank, so you can access it and manage it appropriately. Cloud is, of course, another subject that you really can't think without today any longer, whether it is, moving the archive into the cloud or even having your entire email service sitting in the cloud. And finally, having archiving available as an outsource sort of product, so you don't actually have to manage it yourself, and have the risk mitigated appropriately with a partner such as bluesource, for example. And last but not least, the ability to access the archive from anywhere, from any device. So have the ability to access your archive data from your iPhone, from your Android tablet, whatever it might be, where you may not have your laptop with you. Leading on from that, we have, of course, Enterprise Vault, and a lot of those new requirements are being met by Enterprise Vault version 11. For the past 10-11 years, Enterprise Vault has been the #1 archive platform, but not just for email. It supports a wide variety of additional content sources in addition to email, including, of course, file systems, instant messaging, SharePoint collaboration environments, even databases or Unix file systems, and social media data, such as your Facebook, your Twitter, conversations that you may have with your customers, and which also potentially fall under some sort of regulation that you need to maintain and manage that data appropriately, and of course discover it if required. It is still important for customers to have a seamless and intuitive way of accessing this information, ideally through Outlook, through their mail client, on their device, on their laptop, on their tablet, whatever they may have, and have the ability to get to this information quickly and painlessly with high capability of actually customizing the view that you see, searching this information, and so on. And of course, the ability to use proper industry standard e-discovery solutions, such as the Discovery Accelerator, which can be a part or bolt-on addition to Enterprise Vault, or the Symantec e-discovery platform powered by Clearwell, in addition to your archiving solution to fulfill any kind of e-discovery needs that you may have. A few key dates in terms of end of engineering support and end of assisted support. So what end of assisted support means is if it's green, you can still call about it and you will get a case raised, and someone will be able to assist you from a technical support perspective. End of engineering support basically means if there is no data loss risk there, then it is very unlikely that you will get any kind of additional fix or patch for an existing problem, and you will be asked to upgrade to a later version until it's green again. So as you can see, for version 10, which was the last version prior to version 11, there still is no end of engineering support in sight. It's still to be confirmed, which is what TPC stands for, but you can call us about problems around Enterprise Vault version 10 until 2018. So quite a long time. We will support you. However, we do encourage you that you go to the latest version relatively quickly to take advantage of all the new functionality and features, and of course application proliferation, which is included in the product, such as support for Exchange 2013 and so on. Major enhancements that we saw in the couple of last releases are listed on this slide. I'm not going to read them all out to you. perhaps a couple of important ones that aren't listed here, going back a little bit further to Enterprise Vault version 8, because I know there are quite a few customers out there who are still running Enterprise Vault version 8, because, let's face it, it was a great release. It introduced things like optimized single instancing across different Vault Store partitions, so no longer did you have to suffer from having duplicate documents sitting in SharePoint on your file system, in journaling, and in your email inbox, and potentially another couple of locations. You can now single instance across the board, drastically reducing the amount of backend storage required. Another thing that was introduced in Enterprise Vault version 8 was, of course, the ability to create a couple of Vault Store partitions preemptively, and you could then configure rollover partitions. So if a certain threshold was met, either a size threshold or an age threshold, you could automatically roll over, so you didn't have to look into the Vault Administration Console or the VAC on a daily basis. And then, of course, EV9 came along with Exchange 2010 support of changes and enhancements around SharePoint archiving and so on. And finally, EV10 was released, which concentrated quite heavily on the indexing side. So we moved from a 32-bit to a 64-bit indexing engine. We replaced the old user and automatic classification engines. Maybe you remember them, the ACE and the UCE, with the data classification engine, so basically some code that we nicked from the data loss prevention technology, also from Symantec, and used to give you advanced capabilities around how you can classify your data, spotting an email potentially with a credit card number in it, and then see that you can apply the appropriate retention category to it. Financial document, you need to retain it for 9 years, that kind of stuff. And without further ado, of course, there was version 11 that was released actually on the 5th of May for the rest of the world, but the 5th of May, as you know, was a bank holiday here in England, so for us it was the 6th of May. And what we got here was Mail Connect, and I go into this in a bit more detail in a moment. The new Enterprise Vault Search, PST migration changes. As you know, PST migration has been around for quite a while, but we made some significant changes around that, especially from an administrator's point of view. You finally get a wonderful overview of what's going on in your PST migration project at a glance. So wonderful new tools for the administrators there. And finally, some changes that we made around SCOM integration, so you can always monitor what's going on in your Enterprise Vault infrastructure from Microsoft SCOM if you're using that already, perhaps for other applications within your organization. The Mail Connect functionality is really twofold. So with Mail Connect, you get two things. First of all, you get an Enterprise Vault IMAP server. So Enterprise Vault functions as an IMAP server, which allows you to connect from any device that has an IMAP client to your archive. So finally, you can use your iPhone, you can use your Android tablet, you can use your laptop, you can use pretty much any web browser, any kind of web IMAP client to access your archive data. And we will see how that looks like in a minute. The other bit that it allows you to do is it opens up the possibility to archive internet mail for you. So gone are the days where you were restricted to an on-premise Exchange solution. You can now archive data from a Gmail, from Office 365, from Zimbra, even Novell Group-wise, even though I have yet to come across a customer who still uses Novell Group-wise in the last couple of years. However, if you are considering to move into the cloud, and one of the stumbling blocks has been the fact that perhaps okay, if you're moving your Office, your Outlook to Office 365 or your Exchange to Office 365, then what about the file system archiving that you previously purchased, for example? You know, will you now need to support two different solutions? No, you don't, because we can now support your on-premise solution as well as your internet mail from the same console. The next slide really shows you how this Mail Connect client, the IMAP client, looks like from an Apple iPad, for example. So if you are at all familiar with Apple, this should look really familiar to you. You've got your archive. It is circled. Sorry, there's a green square around it, not a circle. In the top left, you see you're in a subfolder called archive. You can of course call it whatever you want. Archive kind of makes sense because you are looking at an archive, and you see your emails just as you would. As you normally would, including the preview pane, the ability to reply to an email, to forward an email, to print it. You know, all of your functionality is still available. And the same would be the view on an Android, of course, with the Android version of the IMAP client. The same would be on an iPhone or indeed your laptop, you know, maybe your Mac. That you're accessing your archive from through your Safari browser or through the latest and greatest Outlook for Mac version. So looking at Enterprise Vault Search next. So those of you who've already got Enterprise Vault installed prior to version 11 probably remember those two screenshots. When you installed, you had a choice of either or. Those two search tools from an end user perspective. The left one is the Outlook, is the archive search. You had a button, you clicked on it, you got there, you had like this Google type interface where you typed in your search string. You got some advanced find options there as well that allowed you to specify things like date ranges, sender, recipient information, attachment types, and so on. And you had another search tool, the Archive Explorer available, which is shown to the bottom right here, that allowed you to give to have more of an Explorer type view available, trawling through your your directory structure, if you like, in your email. And this particular one is the web browser search that you're looking at here. If you have very good eyes, you can see that we're looking here at the journal, so you could look through all the variety of different search strings, the author, the subject, and so on, through a web browser as well. What we have introduced in 11 is the new EVS, the new Enterprise Vault Search. And rather than have given you the choice between the Archive Explorer or the Search Archive functionality from the old days, it's now all in one. You still have your Google type search field at the top. You've got your directory structure and the navigation to the left, with some nice favorites at the top if you carry out the same type of search over and over again due to the nature of your role. You've got the content of those folders in the middle, and you've got a preview pane to the right. So remember, in the old days you didn't have a preview, you only got the first 3 lines, which then forced you to make a decision based on incomplete information. Another thing that we did is we now highlight the search string. So rather than reading through thousands and thousands of word-long emails, some people, they write entire novels on Outlook. Rather than searching through the entire email for that one word or that one phrase that you were looking for, you get your search string highlighted straight away. So no more sitting there and doing a bit of an Easter egg search with a magnifying glass. You get immediately pointed to where you need to be. Advanced search capability is still available. So to the top right, it's very hard to see, but I'll show you in the demo. There is advanced search capability to allow you to, again, narrow down your searches to date ranges, sender, recipient, attachment types, and so on. So it's very, very comprehensive. Just the one tool now, and this looks exactly the same on whether you open this within Outlook or whether you open it in any kind of web browser. And I really mean that. That's any kind of web browser. Previously only Internet Explorer was supported. Now we support a whole lot, including Firefox, including Chrome, and of course Safari for our Mac users. And it says so on the next slide. A couple of new features I'd like to point out here is, first of all, it's the virtual scrolling. If you have used the search previously, the archive search, then you know that you could have an absolute maximum of 500 hits. If you did some very generic searches and you needed to see more search results, you had to somehow narrow it down in the search string. Here you will still only receive the first 500 hits. However, you can then scroll down to have the next 500 displayed to you. The reason why 500 was the maximum is that that's a limitation in the caching of Microsoft Outlook. So we could never display more than 500. Now we can with the virtual scrolling capability. I already mentioned the hit highlighting. You still have the HTML preview of attachments. Yeah, if you're sitting in the train with your BlackBerry and that can't for some reason display an Excel spreadsheet properly, you can see an HTML rendition of it instead to make sure that you can get to the information no matter what sort of mobile device you're using. And I believe with that, we are moving over to the demo portion of today's presentation. So please bear with me a few seconds while I switch it over so you can see my desktop. Okay, I'm getting the thumbs up. So apparently you can now see I've just clicked on the Enterprise Vault tab at the top there and then clicked on Search Vaults. That brings me to the new Enterprise Vault search screen. So it looks a little bit different than what you might be used to. The next thing I can do then is type in a word on the Enterprise Vault search screen, hit the search button, and hopefully this will then give me the search results. As you can see, I looked for Canon and it highlighted the search string for me up here in the subject field, but also in the preview pane, which I happen to have at the bottom here. So everything's there. And I can scroll down and you can see the search phrase is further down in the email as well. I don't have to play this Easter egg hunt game in order to find my particular search string. Advanced search capability is available as well. So clicking that then allows me to build my search up using those drop-down menus. So I can look for the from field, I can look for phrases and words in subject, in the content, to CC, and so on and so on. And I can extend that, and I can extend it even more if 2 search strings aren't enough. Or 3 aren't enough. You know, I can extend it to my heart's content. And in case you were wondering, this kind of search capability is available on mobile devices as well from version 11.01 onwards, which I just mentioned is actually currently in beta, and we're looking to fully release that at the end of September, beginning of October kind of time frame. So hopefully all of this that you see here will be available for mobile devices, including tablets and mobile phones as well. Just going back here to the simple search and then clicking on the Actions button right next to the username of this Enterprise Vault search, because we mentioned that customizability is really key when it comes down to user friendliness. In the preferences here, I can configure a number of things that I would like to show you. The first bit I would like to show you is the hit highlighting. So obviously at Symantec we kind of like the color yellow very much, but you may not like it that much. I figure you guys are more into sort of the pink kind of color range. So if I just change this to pink now, just to see or to prove to you that I can change the color there. I hit the search button again, and as you can see, the hit is now shown in pretty in pink. Going back to the preferences, as to not to offend you, I'm just going to switch it back to yellow again. But the other bit that's probably very important is the sidebar. So I'm just going to activate it. It's getting a little bit small, but I'm just trying to prove to you that this is not limited to email. So you can see now I've got a sidebar here that allows me to first of all have the Explorer type view available. So all of my subfolders are now accessible. So if I look for something in a specific subfolder, I can search through here. Much easier now. If you're like me, I've got a subfolder for every year, for every customer, for every opportunity, for every partner I'm working with. I'm a subfolder queen, as you could say. For me, this is much easier, but again, it's your personal preference and you don't have to choose. You can have everything under the power of your fingertips right there. Of course, I can do this for file as well. I can do this for journaling. I can do this for SharePoint, for public folders, for shared. In the screenshot that I showed you in the demo earlier, we had Facebook in here. So whatever you are archiving, any kind of content that you're archiving can be searched through this Enterprise Vault search. And exactly the same view is available in any kind of web browser as well, if you choose so. You don't have to have Outlook for that. I just wanted to highlight that once more. So this really brings me to the end of this particular search demo. The other thing that I really would like to show you before I hand over to Mustafa, who seems to be quite ready to go, is just this wonderful screenshot once more. This is not a screenshot, this is actually my Vault Administration Console of the PST management, so the personal store management view. So we had, when we did the webcast the last time, we had quite a few questions around PST migration, so I thought it was quite worthwhile to just show this one to you again. It gives you obviously not very meaningful information here because this is a demo environment, but it shows you immediately at one glance where you are in your PST migration project. So if someone comes and says, okay, where are we with this project? What are you doing? You can see immediately what's going on. And the other thing that I can show you here in the Administration Console, if you are familiar with it, you will already have noticed that there's now a client access plugin here where you can configure your IMAP. This is really it. Under policies, you now got the IMAP policies here as well. So similar to any kind of other policies, you can configure this all from the same console. If you've got file system archiving, SharePoint archiving, email archiving, database archiving, and you do not need to learn a multitude of different products. This is really, everything is done from the same console. So hopefully no fear there, and I'm just clicking on it to show you it's really intuitive when you're configuring it. You set up your IMAP server, you are configuring your firewall 993, port 993 to let the IMAP traffic through. You create the appropriate certificates from a security point of view, and Bob's your uncle. This is really all you need to do. It's really not a terribly difficult thing if you're used to working with Enterprise Vault already. Okay, so as mentioned just now, we did have a couple of changes with regards to PST migration. But yeah, so PST migration features in EV11 are really twofold. First of all, we're building on the improvements that we've already made in version 10.0.4. Those were largely around the client-side PST migration. You know, when your users are submitting PST files for migration, they now get a counter, a percentage. They can choose what sort of retention time they can associate with their PST files. So a little bit more visibility, so they're not left hanging in the dark on, you know, how far are they with their migration? Can they safely unplug their laptop? You know, that kind of stuff. So all of this has been implemented in version 10.04, and we are building on this in EV11. I guess the most important bits here is the better Vault Administration Console usability for the larger PST migration projects, including a wonderful dashboard view, which I believe is on the next slide, as well as the ability to override password protection. And as we at Symantec are a security company, in addition to obviously an archiving and a backup company, we would just like to state here that this is not a cracking or hacking of PST files that we're doing. It is a well-known fact where the password is stored within the PST file. Yes, the password is inside of the PST file, and we are just looking at this clear text field to identify what the password is and allow you to override it as an administrator and ingest the file subsequently into your Enterprise Vault archive if you so desire. Okay, and here's the dashboard view. So this is how it looks like. You go to the page and you see immediately where you are within the project. So if someone comes around and asks, okay, where are we with the migration, you can say we are about 24.75% done. We've migrated 4,790 files already. Obviously, you know, the gigabyte size here doesn't really make sense. Obviously, this was taken in a test environment, this particular screenshot. But at least it gives you a bit of an overview. It gives you an idea of how this might look like and exactly what your status is in addition to everything else. And finally, there are filter capabilities available that allow you to, almost like the provisioning groups in Exchange, allow you to group your PST files together, either based on location, based on association with a mail server, based on names, so alphabetically, or the VIPs in the organization. And then you can, once you've applied those filters, assign priorities to those PST files, so you can make sure that the most important or the oldest or the ones in a particular location are migrated first. So it really gives you a lot more flexibility around managing your PST migration project, and it allows you to get in control of this almost incontrollable problem with PST files, at least in the larger organizations. I promised some SCOM enhancements earlier on, so you can see that we not only see whether a machine is up and running, but also its health state, which can be absolutely crucial, especially when we're looking at the SQL databases that are associated with the Enterprise Vault installation. If the SQL databases are down or not reachable for whatever reason, nothing will work, neither the archiving nor the search nor anything else. So it's important that you know what's going on, whether something's been backed up or not, so you have a good idea of what's going on within your environment. Last but not least, the hardware and software requirements for Enterprise Vault 11 haven't changed drastically since the previous version, EV10. We still support the virtual platforms. It's very popular to have Enterprise Vault installed on a VMware engine or on a Hyper-V hypervisor platform. We still support Server 2008 R2 and Windows 2012. Windows 2012 R2 is still pending to some extent. However, it's looking very likely that this is going to be supported in version 11.01, which currently is in beta. Software no longer supported by Enterprise Vault version 11. I think the important one here is the SQL Server 2005. If that is your SQL Server environment, you've got to upgrade to SQL 2008 or newer. You can get away with SQL 2008 Express. However, that has certain size and performance limitations associated with it. So depending on the size of your organization, you may want to discuss it with a partner such as bluesource to make sure that the SQL database will support your infrastructure. Exchange Server 2000 shouldn't come as a surprise. I mean, Microsoft themselves do not support Exchange Server 2003 anymore. Never mind 2000, we still support 2003. However, Outlook 2003 is, I say, semi-supported here because while we don't support it with the EV11 Outlook plugin, you can still use the EV10 plugin, and we will support it fully. I know we haven't really mentioned Lotus Notes a lot. However, Lotus Notes is still there and it is still supported, the latest and greatest, Lotus Domino version 9, etc. So please get in touch either with us at Symantec or with bluesource. They will be happy to support you fully when it comes to your Lotus or Exchange version. And the last slide I have to present before we move on to the demo is just a quick architectural slide to quickly remind you that Enterprise Vault really does a lot more than just your email, your Exchange, your Lotus Notes, or your internet email. It also allows you to archive social media, your LinkedIn, your Twitter, your Facebook. I had a question around Yammer the other day. So all of those are fully supported through partner plugins with the Enterprise Vault engine. Internet mail, of course, so Office 365, Gmail, Yahoo Mail, Novell, GroupWise, Exchange, Domino, SharePoint, your file servers, and again, this is not limited to Microsoft file systems. That can include Unix file systems as well. And lastly, and this really is something that Mustafa will discuss with you in just a few moments, the cloud storage as well. So getting the archive data into the cloud and potentially have a managed service around it to take away the risk, to mitigate the risk, and manage the data appropriately. And with all that, I look forward to any kind of questions that you may have going forward. But at this time, I would like to hand over the control to Mustafa, who is going to go back to the slideshow and enlighten you on the bluesource offering on Enterprise Vault 247. Thank you very much.
So my name is Mustafa Najra, and I have really overarching responsibility for the hosting and managed services within bluesource. And I tend to really get involved in complex deployments and integration and aggregation of solutions. So it's a great insight that Steph's given in terms of functionality of Enterprise Vault, and it remains a market leader in archiving, which is why most of you have implemented it as a solution. And we've highlighted that data is growing and that we're archiving different types of data. So it means the application is really more resource hungry. So it's adding strain on the underlying infrastructure and the storage. Increased functionality is great. It means increased complexity of the application and greater management overhead. So they go hand in hand. Most people think, the biggest cost of storage when it comes to Enterprise Vault, it's a close second, but in reality, it's management and support is a hidden cost that often businesses overlook. And any ROI model that I put forward, it tends to be the highest cost. Management and support, often businesses overlook it, and it probably accounts for about 80% of the overall cost of the solution, and probably 20% for the remaining. And and some of you are looking at public cloud offerings archiving as a service brings, such as Symantec the cloud, and the added savings that brings. And who can blame you, as Gartner estimates savings to be circa 40% in total cost of ownership. So there's a 40% realization in total cost of ownership if you adopt a software as a service type model. Public cloud market is now fit for enterprise, and it's estimated to hit about $98.6 billion. And it's not just a viable, but a desirable alternative with the sheer economies of scale that you get. So there's a myriad of solutions out there that are leveraging public cloud, such as Store Simple, the Symantec API, to tier the data storage, but you need an appliance on site to be able to do that. And with an API, latency becomes an issue as the application and the vault stores are in different data locations, essentially. This is what customers are grappling with day to day in terms of cost certainty as data spirals, flexibility, scalability, and a predictable, really, per user per month type model. And the ability to free up resource in terms of personnel and for mission critical applications on the internal platform. In 14 years, I still have, yet to meet an IT director, a manager, a CFO, who says, I've got the key personnel to deliver all the business requirements. I can support all the applications running internally. I'm on track to deliver the projects set out at the beginning of the year, and I have ample budget to do it. It's never that case. It's always the business wants to deliver this. I don't have the staff or expertise. There's no budget allocation for this. And what can I dump on the new guy that just started? And what can I get rid of next to reduce the load on my already overstretched staff? These are sort of the conversations that we seem to be having day in, day out with customers. For end users, it's about intelligent information management. I want one pane of glass to search across all my data, and I want that deep level of integration with Outlook. And I want the ability to be able to access my data anywhere, any place, on any device. And why not? We have access to our mail on all these devices, so why can't I have access on for the archive? So, I'm going to see customers more and more, and I was perplexed to see customers considering moving from a superior product like Enterprise Vault to software as a service type models that give you a reduction in functionality. So it's a vanilla flavor functionality essentially that you're getting. And we're assuming that cost saving is a given, and after 300-400 users, we start to dispel that myth, really, because it is a myth in terms of that number of users. And it's dependent on it's really dependent on your view of archiving. Do you see it as a commodity? Does a cloud archive fall in line with your regulatory and compliance requirements? What's the impact on users of moving from an archiving platform and losing essentially that deep integration with Outlook and saying to them, well, you now have to access your archive through a URL? Are you using data classification services inside and require granularity in those policies? Essentially, and management of those sort of one-size-fits-all approach might not suit you. So, also, what's the entry cost into that platform? Do I have to migrate my data to PST, essentially, and then ingest? And how long before I can get my return on investment as a result of this exercise? And what's the timeline? Am I archiving more than just mailboxes? So, essentially, what we've put together at bluesource is to bring you the whole functionality as EV247 to address all the issues that I've highlighted. You're retaining that superior functionality of Enterprise Vault, which I class as a superior product in the archiving space and e-discovery. And we're combining it with the Microsoft Azure public platform to give you that economies of scale and huge cost savings that a public platform essentially brings. And we're wrapping it with a bluesource specialist managed service and application expertise to give you a level above to provide it as a software as a service, essentially. It's the archiving without the compromise. So what we're doing, essentially, we're taking away that headache of managing it, supporting it, upgrading it, patching it, backing it up. All we want you to do, essentially, is use it. And we've put some of the elements in there of what you can still do. It's fully configurable. You get the full functionality of Symantec Enterprise Vault. It puts you in cloud, puts you in control of your data and data and policies. You get the seamless user experience with online and offline that Steph spoke about. You're in control of the data storage. There's no high data migration costs, especially if you're using Enterprise Vault, because we can simply just move those partitions. You get a strong ROI and payback in terms of number of users, and you protect your initial investment that you've made in EV. So you can continue to use those licenses in that public space domain. So I've already highlighted that the biggest cost essentially tends to be management and support. So if you've already made the investment essentially in your underlying infrastructure and you already have the necessary infrastructure to support it, then bluesource can still manage and support that environment on your essentially in your data center or on premise or wherever you have enterprise currently deployed. So we can take the headache of managing it and maintaining it for you and supporting it. So you no longer have to have that expertise in-house to be able to do that. And we still give you all the guarantees. So it's 99.9% uptime for Enterprise Vault. We back it with an SLA. We still do we manage from an application level, and we manage the underlying OS for patch management. We install bespoke monitoring agents, so it's fully proactive managed service. We give you a service delivery manager, so you still have access to the customer, and we give you access to a customer portal essentially that you can see real time what you're recording in terms of change management, any change management you're logging, and what we're picking in terms of incidents and alerts on your environment. And we give you a bespoke change control process essentially. So we're actually party to your change management process. So thank you all for listening. I think we're going to open it to Q&A.
Yeah, thank you very much, Muz. So we've had a couple of questions as we've gone through. I just invite everybody that does have any outstanding questions to use the chat icon down in the bottom left-hand corner. So if you click on that, it should reveal an IM style window to you. So if there's any questions about anything that you've heard today, whether it be new functionality in Enterprise Vault, what the situation might be with upgrading from where you are today, or anything to do with what's happening with the EV24/7 in Azure or our managed services, we'll happily field any questions. You've got the right brains in the room today to really dig into those subjects as you need to. Now, I have one question here which I will pose to Steph. And the question here is, does web browser support require any plugins for the browsers, or does it just work automatically through OWA? So I think there's probably a couple of points just to clarify there.
Okay, so Outlook Web Access and the Enterprise Vault Search are rendered automatically by the IIS, the Internet Server that comes as a part of the Enterprise Vault installation. So it's simply a website that you're accessing in order to see the search. So you do not need to install any further browser information in order to use the Enterprise Vault Search. With Outlook Web Access, it's slightly different. So what you tend to do is on your Outlook Web Access front-end servers, you install a package. So when you are accessing Outlook Web Access, for example, from an internet cafe or a system that hasn't accessed the Outlook Web Access before, that piece of software, we're talking very minimal, a few hundred KB in size, is transmitted to the machine you're logging in from, and you can thus access the archived information, use the native search, and obviously see the different icons that an archived item, for example, would pose. Okay, so another question that came up is Enterprise Vault 11 fully compatible with Office 365 for journaling and mailbox archiving? The answer in the current version EV11 is no. You can archive Office 365 data by simply assigning a particular email and moving it to the archive as a user. However, this is going to change in 11.01, which, as I mentioned earlier, is currently in beta test. What we are doing there is we're introducing an SMTP engine, a new SMTP archiving engine with Enterprise Vault 11.01 that will allow you to completely circumvent the whole journaling aspect. So a copy of every email that is going through your either Exchange environment or through your internet mail environment will automatically be copied and moved into the archive, including BCC information, etc., and the permissions. So all of this will be absolutely possible in 11.01, which again I mentioned earlier is very likely to be released around the end of September, beginning of October time frame, and is currently in beta if you're interested.
Just a quick follow-on to that one. Am I right in thinking that with current release you can still target Enterprise Vault as a journal from Office 365 currently, or is that still to come in Service Pack 1?
No, the journal can be archived straight away. I am off mute, aren't I? Yes, I am. Yeah, no, the journal is different. However, what we're going to do in 11.01 is we're completely circumventing the entire need for journaling through the SMTP engine. So you do not need to have a separate, for example, journaling mail server. Obviously in Office 365 it doesn't matter, but if you've got an on-premise a solution where you've got perhaps several journaling mail servers, all of those will no longer be required if you need to retain a copy of everything that's going through your Exchange environment without obviously having a journaling server in place using SMTP.
Okay, and I think another one here that will field to you, Steph. So does EV11 do anything to help the backup of the index files? So obviously they're using backup exec currently, and they seem to be struggling a little bit with getting the indexes backed up using backup exec. So, got any thoughts there?
The indexes themselves, from an Enterprise Vault point of view, are very small, pure text files. So irrelevant of the backup solution that you're using, there really shouldn't be an issue backing those up. Again, they are text files, and obviously the size is in relation to your archive, but even if you're using full indexing, they should not exceed 13-14% of the amount of data that you're actually archiving, so they are fairly small in comparison. Another factor on the speed and the performance of backing those up is, of course, the location. If they're on fast SanDisk, which is a recommendation as per our installation guide, again, you shouldn't have any problems backing those up. If you're using backup exec, you could, for example, use the native snapshot technology of your iSCSI or SCSI SAN device to off-host backup those. There's a variety of different choices, so we would have to look at how you're backing them up and potentially involve support as well, because I don't see why there should be any significant delay in backing up those indexes. They are just, in the end of the day, text files. And what you obviously need to do is you need to put them into backup mode prior to backing them up, which could also have an effect on the speed, as they would be locked down by the databases and the Enterprise Vault installation as a whole.
Great, thanks for that answer. And also, Paul, if you want to drop us an email subsequently if there's something specific there perhaps to your environment, then maybe we can try and troubleshoot with you, then by all means we'll pick it up outside of the webinar, but it's a good question, so thank you for that. We've got a couple of questions here which are specific to what we've been talking about, EV247. Just very quickly, we'll just carry on while we've got the Q&A coming in, so apologies for sort of overrunning, but we find that it's better to field these things while we can. So quick question for Mus in that case. How do the costs for something like EV247 compare with your typical SaaS-based cloud archives?
Yeah, so that's a good question actually. In terms of Enterprise Vault, so if you're an existing user of Enterprise Vault and you already have essentially the licenses and you're considering a software as a service type model, and if you're about typically a 150 user organization, you'll see it's probably a 15 to 20% overhead in terms of software as a service. So it's slightly more expensive because of the full functionality that you're getting in terms of Enterprise Vault. But if you're a 300 or 400 user organization, essentially, then you see a cost reduction in terms of software as a service type model, or probably a similar nature. So you're probably talking 25% reduction on a software as a service type model if you're within that bracket. So it all depends essentially on your profile and the number of users that you have.
Okay, and just a quick follow-up question. So does EV247 take care of backups as well? And what sort of retention can be anticipated?
Yeah, So EV247 is all encompassing solutions. So we're taking care of the backups, and we're storing them in two different locations. So you've got the primary being in the Microsoft Azure data center, which is essentially in Dublin, and we're using the secondary Microsoft data center, which is in Amsterdam, and we're holding the backups essentially in Amsterdam for the closed partitions, and for the open partitions, we're following best practice, which is we're taking 7 daily copies of the open partitions, 5 weeklies, 12 monthlies, and we're wrapping those up. So in terms of a backup schedule, we have that for open partitions, and it differs for closed partitions because they're not really changing.
Great, thanks very much for that, Ms. Okay, well, I believe we've pretty much reached the end of the Q&A. I've just got Steph is just putting her hand up to maybe just add just another thought here.
Yeah, I just wanted to go back to the person who asked about the Lotus Domino, just to completely close off all the questions. I've just had a look at our software compatibility list for you, and I can indeed confirm that Lotus Notes up to version 8.5.3 is fully supported with version 11, and of course IBM Notes version 9 and 9.01 as previously mentioned. I just wanted to complete that question as well. Thank you very much.
And that pretty much wraps it up. So just finally, thank you to our presenters today, to Muz and to Steph, and thanks to each of you for taking the time this morning to join us. So wish you a very good day, and goodbye.